Welcome back to another episode of Silent Pals Go to the Movie. This is another Throwback Thursday review. I'm here with my friend Touly. Say hi, Touly.
Hello, everyone.
And today we're going to be reviewing 12 Monkeys, the movie from 1995 with Bruce Willis. Just a fair warning, there's going to be spoilers up ahead, so you've been warned. In a future world devastated by a disease, a convict is sent back in time to gather information about the man-made virus that wiped out most of humanity population on the planet Earth. So this movie came out in 1995, which recently there has been a TV spin-off of it. And this movie was also inspired by an old short French film called La Jetée, which translates to the Yeti from 1962. It's a black and white film. For people who are interested in the film, there's going to be a link down below. Let's start this review. I'm going to start talking about it. The first time I saw this movie was early 2000, and I remember watching it. And the thing that captivated me was the time travel. I'm a huge fan of movies that tackle this idea of time travel, and I'm always watching it to see how accurate or if there's any loopholes that I can find. But this movie, to me, even if it had loopholes or any plot holes in it, I was more interested at the end about the characters and how they interacted with each other and how that affected each other in the future and present. I'm going to start at the ending. In the ending, it's almost like a movie that goes in full circles. At the beginning, the opening is the ending. So in a sense, it comes to a full circle. It's something that at the end of the movie, I was really captivated by it. It left me asking more questions, but not bad questions. It left me pondering what I had seen and if it made sense and what each character added to the movie, their value to the movie and everything. Especially the cast in this movie, Bruce Willis, Brad Pitt, and Madeline Stone. All of these people did their roles perfectly. At the beginning, you see every individual separate, but almost at the end, they come together and they become this unity. And as they go through the movie, each element keeps adding to its own, especially from the future and the past. So this movie to me was well made. We tackle 4 dates, actually. We start off in the future in the year 2035. In the movie, it's never really mentioned, but in some promotional posters, it actually has that year on there. So we know it's 2035. And in this time, humans are living underground because there's a disease that wiped out humans. They went underground, and then there's radiation on the surface. Humans can't live on the surface. So for that reason, in the future, everybody is living underground. Bruce Willis' character, James, he's sent back in time. He's not sent to stop it. He's sent to just monitor and actually retrieve some samples of bacteria so they can actually find a cure for the future. It's not like they're trying to rewrite time. In a sense, they're trying to find the cure to bring to the future to actually make a cure for the disease in the future. And that to me was actually something that when I was a kid, when I first saw it, I was wondering, why don't they just stop? Why didn't they just stop everything? And now growing up and then loving the idea of time travel, this makes more sense, because if you would have stopped it back in the past, the future timeline wouldn't arrive at where it was. Maybe the scientists knew this ahead of time and they wanted to prevent this. So, not to spoil anything, but there's an ending. At the ending, there's another little tidbit that I might touch upon later. Going back to the time travel. He's sent back to time. The first time he's sent back to 1990, but they're trying to target 1996. And to me, that was kind of funny, because I'm like, in the future, they have the ability to time travel, but they can't really accurately pinpoint where they're going to send the person. So, James gets sent to 1990 the first time, then comes back and tells them, you sent me to the wrong date. They give him a second chance. Second time they send him, he gets sent to 1917, which is around World War I, and he's in the trenches. He's still not done time traveling. He jumps to 1996, where that's the time that he's supposed to arrive properly. So this movie, to me, tackled all the subjects well. Characters were really well done. Brad Pitt, he was the loony guy. He knew everything. He was on it, but he acted like he was crazy, but he wasn't crazy. I loved his acting, because there's a tidbit that the director sent him to speech therapy to make him talk fast and act kind of loony, but at the end he didn't get any of those things down until the director took his cigarettes away. And that basically made him act the way he's acting in the film, which to me was really well performance. Bruce Willis played the character of the guy who's from the future, who everybody in the past takes for crazy because he's talking about the future. So all of these elements to me made the perfect balance of the movie, and I really enjoyed it. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Touly.
This was actually my first time ever seeing this film. Like Sal said, it does deal with time travel, and in general, I'm a pretty big fan when it comes to time travel movies or TV series or whatever. Of course, it has to be done in such a way where, I mean, it's a fictional work, but at the same time, it has to be done in a way where it's believable. And I think for this film, what made it believable to me was more attributed to Bruce Willis's character, in that whenever he gets transported back in time, he doesn't have the sense of, or his sense of reality is shifted. Like, he can't really tell whether where he's at is real or not, or him being able to adapt to the situation, because his mind is still trying to, put his frame of reference all together. And because of this, it makes him sound paranoid. So whenever he reacts with people, aside from Brad Pitt's character, Jeffrey Goins, I think that's the name of his character, who he himself was pretty crazy himself, because they first encountered each other at the mental hospital. Bruce Willis's character, his paranoia really sold me on this idea of time travel, because whoever he interacted with, in that sense, like, they didn't believe him. Like, this is absurd that you say that you're not just coming from the future, but you're coming back to find a source of trying to save it as well. So I think this is the thing that kind of sold me for this film and made me want to find out what happened at the end. You mentioned, Sal, to the beginning, where it sort of looped back to it, and I would say I wasn't too shocked about what happened at the end. When I saw the kid, I totally thought to myself, okay, that's Bruce Willis, like young Bruce Willis. It was just a matter of how they would come back to it and signify how important that scene was, which they did, because that was basically Bruce Willis as a young kid, seeing him as an adult getting killed. I mean, spoiler alert. And that pretty much led to him in the future, in 2035, getting transported back to try to save the world from this virus. The ending itself, I mean, it was, to me, conclusive enough to wrap things up. I wouldn't say it was like special, because that's normally how time travel movies or whatever work. Like, somehow it has to loop back to a certain point, and it brings up the notion too that no two same like, you can't have a clone of yourself existing in the same timeline. So I guess one of them had to die. In that sense, it was the adult Bruce Willis, because he did come for the future and he was in the timeline where he shouldn't belong in. So like I said, it was pretty conclusive in that retrospect. I would say one of the things that I would like to have the movie done instead, or maybe reduced on, was the length of the film. I wouldn't say it was too long. Like, it was about a 2 hours film, or a little over. It was just that some of the scenes, I'd say they could have done without, or not focused too much on, to reduce the amount of time, make the pace flow a little bit better. And in doing so, I think the film could have been like around an hour 45. I think that would have been a great duration for the film. For example, the random transportation to World War I. I understand why they did it. It was, like, to me, it was just their way of trying to convince the psychologist, or was it the therapist, that Madeline Stowe played, where she found out that the bullet that was found in Bruce Willis's character, James, that is, it was an antique, ammunition. And because of that, it kind of convinced her that Bruce Willis' character was from the future. To me, it just pretty much served that purpose. But I think they could have done it a different way to prevent that additional scene from World War I. But it does go to what you said too, Sal, about this time machine that the scientists created, where they couldn't really pinpoint where to send James to. So you could look at that both either way, I think. But for me, I would have liked it more from a movie production perspective, that they would have been a little more concise in this and just get rid of that scene alone, and somehow made Madeline Stowe's character come to realize that Bruce Willis's character was from the future instead. Or maybe, in a sense, make her just still not believe in his character, believe that he was from the future, until the very end, when she saw the young Bruce Willis. Then it hit her hard. Okay, I finally understand where he's coming from. I think that would have been better for me. I think that's the only thing I would say about this film that I think they could have done better. But it's not so much of an improvement that they could have made that would have made the film that much better. But I'm just saying, for personal taste, I think that's what I would have liked to have seen instead. And you did mention Brad Pitt's character, Jeffrey. I think out of all the characters in the film, I think he was the one who stood out the most, despite the paranoia that James Cole was experiencing. Jeffrey's character in the mental hospital, it was very out there. you couldn't ignore it. And I think even Brad Pitt won an award for his performance as well. So I think I really enjoyed his character, and it made you appreciate it even more when James met up with him at a later point of the film where he thought that he was the source of the virus. Like he was he was part of the 12 monkeys, and this was the group that was gonna lead to the devastation of planet Earth. But it turns out, he was just like an animal rights guy. He was part of an animal rights party trying to free up animals from like a laboratory or from a facility or whatever. They kind of like set up his character to make you believe one thing, but instead it was just, I guess it was, in a way, it was just a comic relief towards the end due to all the madness that James was going through. And I guess in a way, Catherine, who Madeline Stowe's played, I guess she was going through too, because she was putting her job on the line or her career by believing in James Coe and trying to make sense of his situation. Just to see like giraffes, on the highway, it just brought a sense of like relief to both of them. So I think that was a very nice touch to how the movie was going to end, because it pretty much led to James Coe dying in that timeline. I think it was just a nice way to lead up to that moment, that there was a sense of calmness before the storm hit, I guess. I would say, yeah, I mean, like overall, it was a pretty good film. And I guess one more thing I would like to bring up to James Coe, I guess I also appreciate his character in retrospect to his development as he was going through these time travel experiences. How in one situation when he was with Catherine, he ended up killing these two guys while protecting her. And, Catherine was appalled by this because, for the fact that she saw a person, pretty much murder another. And then later when they were having this discussion, like in a hotel, about their situation, and then this guy just popped in, James just took him into the bathroom, and then you would think, oh shoot, he's gonna kill this guy again. He ends up not doing so. So things like that made me sense like a character development in James Coe. I mean, he of course grows in other like characteristics as well, but I think like this was a huge leap in terms of his character growth throughout his time travel experiences, and him being alongside Catherine just made his character grow and just made him like less of a static character. So I think that was an aspect that I enjoyed as well. In certain time travel films, like movies that I watch and stuff, I think this is a very difficult thing to tackle, because you're just so focused on the character who's doing the time traveling and him trying to resolve something. But just seeing a character grow through the experience itself, it's always a welcome sight, and I think this film does a great job at that. Overall, like I said, first time watching this film, and I would say I enjoyed it.
Okay, well, I'm gonna talk to some of the points you just made. Brad Pitt's character, Jeffrey, I saw him as the red herring. At first, we're focused on him, and we're like, okay, this is the guy who does it. This is the guy with the 12 monkeys. Everything's pointed to him. But all of a sudden, we see the giraffes, you're like, whoa, okay, we got misled. And rightfully so, you're like, oh, it's a relief that it's not him, because he's a comical character, like you said. But at the same time, I see him as the jester in Shakespeare's plays, that he knows more than he leads up to, so he's acting a role of the fool, but in reality, he's more than that. He's more on top of things. The way that he has access to things in a mental institution, that he has access to get keys, access to do this and that. He knows how everything works. He's just there because, he likes it there, kind of thing, Next thing, the World War I thing that they get sent back to. I agree and disagree with you. I mean, I thought it was a little too long, but at the same time, that part to me makes sense, because it's right before we see Catherine. She's giving her speech at the museum or university, and she's talking about diseases and stuff like that, and revelations, and gives evidence of people going, appearing and talking nonsense. Then brings up the character Jose, who was James' buddy in jail. They see each other in World War One, but she claims that, oh, this guy got attacked with some gas or something, and then he was wounded, then gets treated, Then when he gets better, he forgets his French because he's on the French side, and he totally knows English. And like, this is kind of those things, we attribute it to this. And then she gives it like a medical term or condition, and she kind of attributes to like, oh, it's a brain disorder or something. In reality, we know the truth that it's a time traveler, So in a sense, it's like she's attacking it from a science point of view, and then we know better as an audience, but at the same time it's like, so are we the crazy ones for believing what we're seeing while she's giving logical reasons? So in that sense, like, to me, I'm always on the scientific side, and then I'm looking at it from her point of view, but at this time it's like, wait, but we just saw this, so how am I going to attribute this? I'm like, do I sound crazy if I kind of say I believe Jose, who was a time traveler, and then blah blah blah, versus all the evidence that we see? But later on, her role flips because she finds Cole with the bullet inside him, and it's an antique. That's when she starts switching the roles. This is what I got. The director was making us take a side and say, you guys are on this side, and I'm showing you this. But she's talking the other, on the other side, and you are right, but she's wrong. And then later on, we switch roles again. Now she's on our side, and we're against the scientific community. So to me, it's kind of those little things, smaller things that kind of add up to later roles. And this is how the characters evolved from my point of view: James, her, and Jeffrey. And then the ending. I'm going to touch upon the ending. What I meant about the ending, yes, we see, I knew it was Bruce Willis, the small kid, and the adult in the airport. But what I'm talking about is after that scene, the guy in the yellow jacket, when he gets on the plane, sits down, the lady next to him who starts talking, and then she presents herself and shakes his hand, and she says that she's an insurance. She's the same lady from the future, one of the doctors who sent James back. In a sense, I want to ask you what you thought about that part, because to me, it just seems like James was sent back to pinpoint the guy. They really don't want to stop this person, because again, if they stop him, the future is going to change. If the future changes, all the doctors are not there, something might happen. For example, again, the Simpsons episode where Homer time travels with the toaster. Every time he travels and changes something, he comes back to the past, it changes. Little minute things can throw off the timeline. To me, it just seems like she said, I'm here for insurance. I work in insurance. So in a sense, she's there to make sure that he gets on the plane and takes that disease and spreads it. Because if he doesn't do it, her future is not going to happen. But what they're trying to do is get the cure to cure it in the future, not change the timeline from 1996 to 2035. So to me, it's this whole little thing that a lot of people online came up with their own theories. So that's my theory. I want to hear what you had. Did you see this? Did you see her? Did you put it together? And if you did, what theory did you come up with?
I wouldn't look at it too deeply like that, the way you put it. I would just look at it in terms of, like, if this film needed a conclusive thing to end on, then I would say yes, that the guy who had the virus met up with the scientist from the future, and that pretty much led to the solution of them preventing the planet from getting hit by this virus. That's pretty much how I took it. Because if you look outside of that, if you look like in terms of it being a negative outcome, like them wanting to spread this virus or whatever, then to me that would lead everything that James Coe's character experience led up to, like his experiences and how he got shot or whatever. It pretty much made his effort pointless. It made his efforts pointless. So from that perspective, that's pretty much how I took it. It's like, if you're going to say that this led to a negative outcome despite all his efforts, then why should I care about what James Coe's character went through? So to me, I had to look at it from like a more positive perspective, in that, yes, they caught the guy who was going to spread this virus and somehow led to them either curing the state of the virus, even if it somehow got spread later down the road, or just prevented it from happening. That's how I took it, because like they put in way too much effort for me to be on the side of James Coe's character. Even like Catherine herself, like they went through too much for me to lead up to a moment like that and just think to myself, oh, they did all of that for nothing, really? So I couldn't look at it from like any negative aspect. I had to treat it as, okay, they got the guy, and somehow, even though they didn't detail anything that happens afterward, it's more like the whole, oh, the rest is history sort of thing. And by the rest of history in this situation, I took it as a positive thing.
Okay, because I took it the way that the scientists would send Cole back and say, you're just an observer. Don't do anything. You're just observing. In that sense, they're trying to tell him, don't do anything. Because if you think about it, they never told James to stop the virus from being spread. He was just there to observe and report back. And if possible, bring a sample back.
Yeah, I understand that. But even if he wasn't supposed to stop the person from... stop the person who had the virus. Like I said, it's questioning why they focus so much on Bruce Willis's character. I mean, if you're just showing me, I mean, if he's the main character of this film, and you're saying, you know, despite his role in all of this, like whether or not he was responsible to stop this guy, I just feel like you're wasting his on-screen time, like his efforts, or the way you're trying to portray his character, you know, stuff of that nature, like. What was the purpose of him being on stage all this time for us to feel like him if it's just going to lead to something very bad? Like, they made it seem like his effort was going to at least lead to something, whether or not he was the guy who was to stop this. Like, that's how I treated it.
Well, to me, that kind of made the whole film saying, like, look, we followed this guy and we invested our time into it, and it's a tragedy at the end. It's like, oh my God, it's like a tragedy play. You know, it's like everybody, you know, that we invested our time in is dying. We look at the scientists like, oh, we meant this to happen because, you know. So to me, I really appreciate the way you see it and the way I see it, because, I mean, this is the way what the film has done. It's in a way, I'm not saying I'm wrong, I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm saying it brought two people who saw the same film, get two things out of it. And without having the director tell us what exactly he was going for, I don't know why, but some directors really like us to get confused and make our own story at the end. And to me, sometimes it gets me really mad because I'm like, God damn it, you tell me what I need to get out of the film. But at the same time, it's like the way you see it, it's like your own future. You know, like you can pinpoint what you want this to lead to. Did you want the disease to end, or did you want it to keep going and Bruce Willis be alive again? Because if he died right there, the kid's still going to grow up, right? Bruce Willis is still alive as a kid. Is he going to go eventually to the same future, or go to an alternate future where he's not in jail, he's not a convict? And again, why was he a convict to begin with? You know, we don't know. Was his future changed from that point for better or worse? The ending is still open-ended, where you come up with your own idea and your future story for the character, which is Bruce Willis at the airport. So all those things, you know, you left pondering, and you let them simmer overnight, and then you come up with your own conclusion. And as you can see, me and Touly, we watched the same film, but we came up with different endings for ourselves. So with that, I'm going to ask Touly to give his final grade for this film.
Yeah, so I would give this film a 7 out of 10. I would recommend it if you haven't seen it. Like I said, it might have been on the long side, duration-wise. They could have probably decreased it by maybe a good 10 to 15 minutes. Yeah, like I said, I love the development of Bruce Willis's character. The character that Brad Pitt played as Jeffrey, that was, like I said, out of all the characters, I think I enjoyed his character the most because it was just so out there. For the most part, I guess I enjoyed Madeline Stowe's characters as well, as she tried to come to terms with James, or come to terms with Bruce Willis's character, and whether or not she believed in him. I wish that would have approached her, the way she came to realize who James actually was, in terms of like her believing his story in a more either metaphorical or in a more like faithful manner. Like, instead of like finding some concrete evidence, again, I'm going back to the idea of the bullet, instead of using that as proof as to whether or not James was from the future or not. No, you know, I would have just liked it had somehow, after going through all these experiences with James, that Catherine, when seeing again the kid at the airport, it was just like the moment hitting her, like, okay, now I see it. She realized that that's James, but you don't need proof for her, like for you or for her to even realize that that is James. It's not like, her going up to the kid or something and say, hey, are you James Cole, or going up to the parents and asking or whatever. It's more like one of those moments in the film where everybody just understands the moment, and that's it. So I wish they would have gone it about that way to give it a more meaningful impact versus, oh, I have proof now that James is from the future, and now I should believe in him, versus, oh, I see it. It's right in front of me. It's in the moment. I believe in him, sort of thing. So, had it gone like that, I would have probably given it a higher score, probably like around the 8 through 9. But like I said, it's still a pretty good film. So 7 out of 10 for me.
Okay. Well, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 for me. I like the aspect of the time travel, the character development, the thing also with at the ending when the kid looks at Catherine, the tear that he sheds. I don't know if the tear is for him or for her, but it's kind of, to me, it's an artful situation right there in that scene. Is he shedding the tear for her or for his own death? Because he does remember in the future that, seeing himself die. So 8 out of 10 for me. The film reminds me of Blade Runner in the future, with that whole darkness and everything. Traveling back in time, it's always a good thing for me in a movie. You have to do it right. If not, I'm going to deduct points. But this time, it was fairly done quite well. I'm not saying that it was the perfect time travel movie, but at the whole end, to me, it was an open-ended movie, so you can come up with what you want. So in that sense, that's why I gave it an 8 out of 10. So that does it for this Throwback Thursday review of 12 Monkeys. Please join us next time when we review the movie The Man Who Knew Too Little. And remember, social media is down in the description, and hit us up if you have any questions. Remember, keep watching movies.